Okay. Ito tayo sa ating next topic or next bar subject, board subject, which is the financial accounting and reporting. Ngayon, as you can see, kung makikita nyo, saan dito yun? Ilang weeks lang tayo kakatapos natin sa MAS, and yung MAS yung subject na lengthy. Kasi nga, gaya ng sabi ko, MAS yung magiging killer subject because yung chairman is forte niya MAS. Wait lang. So ngayon, as of now, which is March 29, 2021, so ilang weeks na lang yung klase natin. Kasi ang final exam week for the graduating, so kayo yun, is on May 24 to, kita nyo dito, May 24 to May 28, yung week na yan. So of course, yung last topic natin or yung last exam natin for this review subject or review course is dito yan. Sa most probably 28 or 29. So ilang weeks na tayo meron from this Kasi sa undergrad is 31 to 4 sa it's tawag dito 24 to 28 kasi graduating kayo, hopefully. Ito yan, ng week na yan. So 1, 2, 3, 4 5, 6, 7 8, 9. So, including this week, 9 weeks na lang tayo meron for the before kayo or before last week nyo sa college life nyo. So, last normal week sa college life. So, paano to? So, sa MAS, more than 1 month, around 1 month tayo, di ba? Around 3 to 4 weeks. For this financial accounting and reporting subject, mga 2 to 3 weeks tayo dito. For the subject of, ito kasing financial accounting and reporting, ito yung klaseng subject sa board exam ng CPA na kung saan basically you will fail this subject if you will only fail this subject kapag nag-mental block ka while taking it. Promise. FAR yung pinakamadaling exam sa board exam, pinakamadaling subject sa board exam. Bakit? Kasi nga ever since nag-start ng accountancy, di ba? FAR, financial accounting and reporting yung parating tinuturo sa atin. Yeah? Yan financial accounting reporting. Yung basic accounting, accounting for partnership and corporations, intermediate accounting part 1, 2, 3, yeah? Tapos yung ibang subjects, mayroon silang mga accounting subjects that are mga topics na related to FAR, di ba? Itong financial accounting reporting, gaya na sabi ko, you will only fail this subject if while taking it sa board exam, nag-mental block ka, promise. Madali lang yung FAR sa board exam, no sweat siya. Oo. Like, meron yun. Yung may classmate ako na mas magaling sa akin, mas magaling sa akin, she failed the board exam. Bakit? Kasi, na-fail na bumagsak sa financial accounting and reporting sa FAR. And mas magaling yun sa akin. Kaso lang, nung nag-take siya ng FAR, kahit na sobrang dali ng FAR, wala siya sa proper mindset nung nag-take siya. So, wala siya condition. So, dun, bumagsak sa subject na yun. Pero pag nasa condition yun siya, pasado yun siya. Basta itong FAR, huwag nyo itong problemahin sa board exam kasi nga, accountants tayo. Itong FAR yung ating bread and butter pagdating sa board exam. Ito yung ating foundation. So, huwag nyo kakalimutan itong FAR. Ngayon, for other subjects, auditing theory lang i-discuss natin. Yung auditing probs, huwag nyo yung problemahin. Kahit ako nga, nung board exam, nung college pa ako, kala ko problema dito. Kinakatakutan ko yung auditing problems. So, pagdating ng board exam, promise, hindi siya ganun kahirap. Hindi siya ganun kahirap. Ang auditing problems kasi, if yung iba sa inyo, hindi alam, ang auditing problem is basically, another way of calling that is workback ng FAR lang yan. Workback lang yan ang problem solving sa financial accounting and reporting. Yan yung auditing problem. So, if master nyo na, or if magaling kayo, or if may alam kayo sa problem solving sa FAR, okay na rin kayo sa auditing problems. Kasi ganun naman ang auditing problems, promise. Workback lang siya ng financial accounting reporting problems. Ngayon, pagdating sa auditing theory, may mga videos na may ako doon. So, mga 1 or 2 weeks siguro tayo dyan. Or mga 2 weeks siguro kasi auditing problem, pasolve ko lang kayo ng mga, kahit wag na siguro kasi nasa FAR naman yan. Ngayon, sa RFBT yung subject na nakakaantok answerin. Yeah? na automatic yan. Na, kahit ano pa yan, basta RFBT, nakakatak yan. Ganyan ang problema sa RFBT is yung mga batas, yung mga rules. Okay, mga batas, yung mga special laws na kailangan pag-aralan. Kasi hindi lang ang RFBT, hindi lang yan oblicon, hindi lang yan sales, hindi lang yan partnership and corporation. And wala na rin sigurong negotin masyado yun eh. So, special laws talaga yan. Special laws. So, yung special laws, sa review niya yung matutunan. Kasi sila, mga attorney na magdi-discuss sa inyo ng special laws sa review. So, wag niyang problema. Basta maganda yung foundation niyo sa oblicon. May videos naman tayo dyan. Oblicon, parkour. Ngayon, sa parkour ng RFBT, bago naman yan eh. So, ako rin nagturo ng parkour last semester. So, if you want, you can advance yung parkour, law on partnership and corporations. May videos naman ako doon na diniscuss ko sa mga second years ngayon. Kasi nga, ang problema sa parkour kasi, nagkaroon ng hindi lang basta amendments, nagkaroon talaga ng changes, significant changes sa law on partnership and corporation. So if you want, you can watch my videos para in-depth discussion yun siya of what are the changes. Sa sales, walang masyadong dyan. So oblicon, nag-stuck yung video. Bakit to nag-stuck ang video? Disactivate. Okay, re-attach ko muna ang video. So sa RFBT, walang problema dyan. And may videos naman tayo. And yung mga special laws, sa review niya sa review yan sa inyo di-discuss sa mga attorney kung ano yung mga style dyan. Yung insolvency, General Banking Act, Anti-Money Laundering, ano pa ba yung iba dun? Yung insurance laws natin, intellectual property. Notory, ang technique lang naman sa RFBT is answer as many reviewers as you can. Answer as many reviewers as you can. Ganyan yun sa RFBT, kapatid. No sweat yung RFBT. And next, anong subjects? Ano pa ang subjects? AFAR, yun. AFAR, 2-3 weeks yun siguro tayo dyan. Ang AFAR, yan yung if you want in-depth discussion, meron tayo niyan. Tawag ito, yung account, alam niyo yung ADVAC, di ba? Nalala niyo ADVAC 1, AFAR 1, and ADVAC 2, Advanced Accounting Part 2. Ang new name nila is Accounting for Special Transaction for ADVAC 1 and Accounting for Business Combination sa ADVAC 2. Ngayon, tinuro ko yan last semester and natapos namin yung book ni Zeus cover to cover and may mga videos din tayo dyan. Ito yun, tinapos ko yan, kapatid. Ito yung sa revise yung sa law on partnership and corporations. Yan revise corp code, law limited partnership. Ito naman yung BAPE 7, yan yung ADVAC 2, accounting for business combination. Yung BAPE 6 is yung is yung accounting for special transaction, ADVAC 1. So tinapos namin yan. Cover to cover yan. So kung gusto ng in-depth discussion, nandito lang yan sila. Tinapos namin yan. Yan yung lalabas sa So yung ADVAC 1 and ADVAC 2, that is basically 2/3 of the board exam. Of the board exam on the advanced financial accounting and reporting, yung ADVAC 1 and ADVAC 2/3 yan. The other 1/3 is basically a combination of process costing. So sa cost accounting yan, huwag kang kakalimutan. And yung accounting for government and non-profit organization, basic lang yan. Ito yung surprising Akala ko mahirap yung GovAct o accounting for government and profit organization. Pero pagdating sa board exam o sa review sa board exam, mga 30 minutes, 1 hour discussion lang yan kasi madali lang yan siya. Kasi hindi yan yung pinupunto ng problems or ng difficulty ng AFAR. Mostly sa sa business combination yan yung mahirap. Sa special revenue recognition, yung mga construction contract, yan, mga franchisor. Ano pa ba yung isa? Consignment sales and installment. Yan yung pinupunto ng AFAR. So, kung gusto nyo in-depth discussion, kompleto tayo niyan, kapatid. For ADVAC 1 and ADVAC 2. Tinapos namin book to book, cover to cover ng book ni Zeus for ADVAC. Ngayon naman, kung gusto nyo ng discussion ng government accounting, and non-profit organization, I believe si Ma'am Deza yung nagtuturo niya ngayon. And yung cost accounting, si Sir Rai sa atin nagtulong sa inyo. Basta, don't forget, pero madali lang. weakness ko ang AFAR. Pero pagdating ng board exam, yan yung highest score ko. Kasi nga, ewan ko anong meron sa AFAR, parang hindi siya ganun kahirap. Pero yung perception niya, di ba, mahirap siya. And yung next topic natin, ano pa, nasabi ko na ba lahat? Auditing, PAR, MAS, with taxation. Yan, taxation. Di ba ang pinaka-latest na sa taxation is yung create bill. So pagdating sa taxation natin, basically, bakit to nagpo-post yung camera video? Nahulog ko kasi to kanina eh. Sa taxation, ang nangyayari dyan sa taxation, kapatid, is tawag dito. Ang nangyayari dyan sa taxation, maraming pabago-bago dyan sa taxation. Bakit? Kasi nga, ang mangyayari dyan sa taxation, ano to nangyari? Yun. Ang meron dyan sa taxation kasi, parati siyang may changes. Ngayon, parati siyang may changes. May train tayo, tapos naging train 2, tapos ngayon may create bill. So, ang ginawa ko nung ako man nagturo ng review, if you can remember correct. Remember, ako man nagturo ng review ng mga graduate last year, di ba? Ang ginawa ko sa taxation, I only taught them the fundamentals, yung foundation lang. Bakit? Una, kasi kulang kami sa time. And second na rin, sakto kasi kapag ituturo mo sa kanila yung current, pagdating ng review, mag-iiba na yan. Ganyan sa taxation. Iba yung taxation. Mostly, sa review ka na matututo for tax. Kasi sa review, yung anong latest, kung ano yung lalabas sa board exam, yan yung tinuturo nila. Mahirap kung gagamitin mong basis for taxation is kung ano itutunan mo sa undergrad. Basta, ma-teach lang sa inyo yung fundamentals, yung general principles, pati yung remedies. Basta yung maturo sa inyo sa inyong review subject ngayon, okay na. Kasi pagdating nyo sa actual review for the boards, dyan ituturo sa inyo kung paano ituturo sa inyo kung ano yung lalabas sa board exam. Yan yung problema sa FAR kasi tingnan mo, ngayon, kung tinuro ko dun sa mga previous year yung taxation at that time, maguguluhan sila kasi ngayon, iba na naman yung ng tax, di ba? Yung create bill, masasama yun sa October. Bakit? Kasi pasok siya hindi siya nakapasok sa 6 months moratorium para include sa board exam. Bakit? Kailan na-enact yung create bill? March. Kailan ng board exam? Ang next board exam sa October kasi na-postpone man May, di ba? March, April, May, June, July, August, September. October. Lumampas siya. Hindi siya nasama sa 6 months moratorium. So, since hindi siya lumampas sa 6 months moratorium, automatic kasama yan sa create bill. And may nakita rin akong post na kinonfirm na isasama yung create bill sa board exam. So, with that, di ba? Padagdag ng padagdag, paiba-iba yung tax. So, gaya na sabi ko, it is preferable. Basta ngayon, maturo sa inyo yung fundamentals, which is the general principle and tawag lang isa, yung remedies, tax remedies. Yung iba, yung income taxation, real estate, business transfer tax, VAT, OPT. Tawag dito, yung isa, yung documentary stamp tax, yung sa mga special economic zones, promise, sa review na yun for the board exam. Yan yung discussion dyan. Kasi kahit nga kami, sobrang bulok ng foundation namin sa tax sa ADZO. Promise, napakabulok. So, most of us natutulang na sa tax nung nasa board na kami. Nasa actual review for the boards na ganun ka ang tax. So, nakapasa pa rin kami. Kasi kahit na nasa actual review na kami, natuto ng taxation. Kasi nga, sa actual review, dyan maganda matutunan yung taxation because of the nature of tax itself. So, yan yung plano natin for the remaining parts of our review, which is around 8 weeks, no? 8 weeks. So, with that, let's start with the review for financial accounting and reporting. Ngayon, itong sa financial accounting reporting, sabihin ko na ngayon, suggestion lang, itong conceptual framework and accounting standards. Yan yung mga accounting standards yan, no? Starting from overview accounting, conceptual framework, PS1, 2, continuous yan. Kung ako sa inyo, for your, for your theory of accounts, di ba? Yan yung TOA, yan yung tawag natin sa accounting ng sa theories ng ng concept ng financial accounting reporting for TOA. If you want, you can watch this video kasi ito pure theories to. Pure theories to. Hindi ko sila binigyan ng hindi ko binigyan ng ang mga first years ng problem solving dito kasi nga puro theories tong si FAS para makatulong niya sa theories of account nyo. So continuous yan, this semester yan, so hindi pa yan tapos. So ang plano rin dito is cover to cover din ng si FAS books ni Zeus. Ito yan si FAS book ni Zeus. Tatapusin namin yan cover to cover. Ang next lecture video ko nangalahati na kami. Oo, dyan. So with that, start tayo sa FAR. Haba ng intro natin, no? So, ito. Basta ganun yung plano natin. So, relax lang. So, ito. So, financial accounting and reporting. Financial accounting and reporting, the easiest subject sa board exam. Gaya na sabi ko, babagsak ka lang sa FAR kapag nag-mental block ka while taking the exam. Promise. Madali lang ang financial accounting reporting sa board exam. Bakit yan yung bread and butter? Yan nasabi ko, di ba? Yan yung bread and butter ng mga CPAs, ng mga accountants, ng mga accounting students, yung financial accounting reporting. Ano to? Financial accounting ang report. Mali pa talaga to. Financial accounting and reporting. So, definition of accounting. Siyempre, sa basics muna tayo. Kasi nga, isa rin yan sa mga maririnig nyo in regards to the board exam is, ang board exam, inaatake ka sa basic knowledge mo. Inaatake ka sa basic knowledge. Kaya minsan sasabihan, ang board exam basic lang yan. Kaso, sa dami ng mga natutunan natin, minsan nakakalimutan natin yung basics, di ba? So, definition of accounting. Accounting is the process of, ito, alam niyo to. Ito parang ginagawa natin is review na lang, di ba? Review na lang talaga to. So, recap na lang ng mga natutunan nyo sa years nyo sa accountancy program. So, accounting. Ito yung una nyong narinig in regards to accounting. Kung ano yung definition niya. Accounting is the process of identifying, measuring, and communicating economic information to, taas ko muna to, baka naghaharang siya. To permit informed judgment and decisions by users of the information. So, yan yung definition ng accounting. May gagawin ka, and yung ginawa mo, and yung result ng ginawa mo, gagamitin ng mga users for their informed decision making. Yan yung minimin ng accounting. The process of identifying. Identify mo. Measure mo. Then, communicate the economic information to the users. Bakit? Anong gagawin ng users dyan? Gagamitin nila for their decision making. Now, there are two types of accounting based on users' needs. General purpose and special purpose. Itong general purpose, basically, it meets the common needs of the financial statement users. Common needs, ibig sabihin, tawag dito, broad yung kailangan niyang yung kailangan niyang isatisfy na needs. So, meet the common needs of financial statement users. Napaka-broad. Ibig sabihin, malawak dapat yung kailangan niyang isatisfy satisfy the needs governed by GAAP as represented by the IFRS. GAAP is the GAAP is the generally accepted accounting principles, diba? As represented by the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, or kapag inadapt na dito sa Pilipinas, the PFRS, Philippine Financial Accounting Standards, Philippine Financial Reporting Standards, and yung PES natin na Philippine Accounting Standards. Yan yung sa general purpose. Yan naman sa general purpose from the word itself, general purpose. Common needs ng FS users. Pagdating sa special purpose, it meets the specific needs of the particular, mas na narrowed, mas na specific, particular FS users provided by other types of accounting other than financial accounting and reporting. Ano to? MAS, kapatid, Management Advisory Services. Kung saan, you will create a financial statements kung saan ito sa special purpose, hindi para sa common needs ng users but rather for the needs of the management. Sa government accounting, gagawa ka ng FS para sa gobyerno. Yeah? Another special purpose type of financial statements is yung para sa taxes natin. Yeah? Mga special purpose yan to meet the specific needs of particular users. For tax purposes, sinong user dyan? Government. For yung galing sa operations. na yung FS mo na based on the operations of the company, sino may kailangan yan? The management. So, yan yung difference nila. General purpose, common needs. Special purpose is specific needs of specific users. So, accounting information system, ito rin daw pag na, di ba? May AIS kayo, di ba? May AIS kayong subject sa undergrad. Usan? Dati, nung panahon namin, parang tagal na, no? Yung AIS, parang hindi mo yung pinoprioritize. Oo. Pero ngayon, sinasabi nila na makakasama na yun sa board exam, pero hindi naman mahirap yung AIS eh. So, Accounting Information System is the system kasi ngayon kung ngayon, hindi natin alam kung anong trip nila, di ba? Accounting Information System or accounting system is the system of collecting and processing transaction data and disseminating financial information to interested parties. It is a subsystem of MIS. So, relevant ba to? Parang hindi man. Madali lang kasi to. Management Information System, ito yung set of data gathering, analyzing, and reporting functions designed to provide management with the information it needs to carry out its functions. So, chill na lang to. So, ito yung accounting cycle. Mga basic, di ba? Huwag nyo kalimutan yung mga basics nyo. Accounting cycle, yung identifying, pinamemorize sa inyo dati pa. Identifying, kahit nga ako nakalimutan ko na. Tanungin nyo yung mga accounting teachers, no? Promise. Karamihan dyan nakalimutan na yung flow ng accounting cycle pag hindi nila ma-review. Oo. Kahit ako nakalimutan ko yan. Identifying and analyzing, journalizing, posting, unadjusted balance, di ba? Adjusting entries, adjusted trial balance, which is optional, financial statements, then you will close the books, post-closing trial balance, and yung reversing entries, optional din. So, yan ang accounting cycle, di ba? Review lang to. Recap lang ng mga natutunan nyo over your years in the accountancy program. So, ito, Conceptual Framework. Gaya na sabi ko, ito, kung gusto yung in-depth discussion for Conceptual Framework, ito yan, si FAS. Conceptual Framework. And theories of account, overview of accounting, ito yung in-depth discussion nila. So, the framework for the preparation and presentation of financial statements, the framework sets out the concepts that underlie the preparation and presentation of financial statements. That is, yung mga objectives, assumptions, characteristics, definitions, and criteria that govern financial reporting. Ngayon, take note of this. The framework does not have the force of a standard. If you look into the nature of a framework, it is comparable to a constitution. Constitution ng mga bansa. Oo. It is comparable to the nature of a constitution. Kasi ang constitution basically sets out the guidelines, di ba? It sets out the rule kung ano yung gagawin. It sets out the framework. Same rin yan sa conceptual framework ng accounting natin. However, the difference between a framework or the conceptual framework, and the constitution is that ang constitution, kapag may conflict sa batas, ang mananaigang constitution. Pero pagdating dito sa accounting natin, if the framework does not have the force of a standard. So, in case of a conflict between the framework and the specific standard, the standard prevails over the framework. So, di ba? Yan lang yung difference sila. Sa constitution, when it comes to the legality, mas nanaig ang constitution kaysa sa specific law. Kasi yung constitution, yan yung mother of all laws. So, kailangan niya na masunod. Pero, pagdating sa accounting, yung conceptual framework natin, kapag may conflict yan sa isang specific standard, ang masusunod yung standard. Sir, anong reason? Anong sense nun? Kasi nga, ang standard, it gives out a it provides us with a more specific guidance. It provides us with a narrowed view. It provides us with the particularity we needed to properly represent the economic transactions that have happened within the entity. Kaya, mas nagpe-prevail yung standard. Kasi nga, ang framework, overview lang ang pinapaano niyan eh. Overview lang. Pagdating sa standard, may specificity. Mas specific yung nangyayari. Mas specific yung kanyang guidance. Hence, nasusunod yung standard. Ito yung objective ng ating financial reporting. The objective of general purpose financial reporting is to be able to provide financial information, di ba? Alam niyo na to. about the reporting entity that is useful to existing and potential investors, lenders, and creditors in making decisions about providing resources to the entity. So, parang ito lang, oh. Di ba? Provide financial information that meets the common needs or the needs of the users. Bakit? Because the users will use that as part of their consideration in their informed decision making. Yeah, ganun kasimple. But the framework notes that the general purpose financial reports cannot provide all the information that users may need to make economic decisions. Kasi nga, general purpose yan siya. Napaka-broad, di ba? Napaka-broad, malawak dapat yung sakop niya. And because of that malawak na sakop, yung pagiging specific, yung pagiging particularity nito, medyo nadi-distort. Kasi nga, it needs to provide a general purpose information. O kaya nakalagay dito, it cannot provide all the information kasi it must meet the common needs that users may need to make economic decisions. They will need to consider the pertinent information from other sources as well. So, underlying assumption, accrual basis, alam niyo yan. Sa accrual basis, effect of transactions and other events are recognized when they occur. Unlike sa cash basis. Accrual, di ba? Pag nangyari ang transaction, kahit na walang flow of cash dyan, record mo. Pero sa cash basis, magre-record ka lang kapag merong flow of cash, whether that's outward or inward. And accrual basis is recorded in the period to which they're. Ito, going concern, the entity has neither the intention nor the need to liquidate or curtail materially the scale of it, materially, the scale of its operation, but will continue in operation for the foreseeable future. Yung foreseeable future na yan is, at least 12 months yan. At least 12 months. Ngayon, ang opposite ng going concern is liquidating concern. Liquidating concern. Ibig sabihin, in the foreseeable future, nakikita mo na the company will cease its operation. So, iba na yung pag-compute mo na kasi liquidating concern na yan. So, nadidiscuss din yan sa CFAS natin. Ito, familiar pa to sa inyo, yung qualitative characteristics of useful information. So, di ba? Qualitative characteristics, nandiyan yung fundamental, nandiyan si enhancing. These identify the types of information that are likely, that are likely to be the most useful to the primary users for making decisions about the reporting entity on the basis of information in its financial report. So, yan yung kung kita dito, qualitative characteristics. Kasi nga, ang accounting, hindi lang yung puro quantitative, may qualitative din yan. Ito na yun. Fundamental and enhancing. Under fundamental, relevance, faithful representation. Predictive, under kay relevance is predictive value, confirming value. Under kay faithful is hindi shota mo kasi hindi yan faithful. Completeness, neutrality, freedom from material error. Ito naman kay enhancing itong 4. O di ba? Ngayon, di ba nagpa-flashback na yung mga natutunan nyo noong undergrad? Kasi kung hindi, sumbong ko kay Ma'am Sat. Or si Ma'am Sat ba nagturo sa inyo ito? Yeah? Parang si Ma'am Sat nagturo sa inyo ito, diba? So, saan tayo ngayon? Or si Ma'am Sat o si Ma'am Shirl? So, saan tayo? Ay, bakit ka nandyan? Yun. So, ito. Fundamental qualitative characteristics. Ito na yun sila, ito na yun sila. Na? So, fundamental. Ito yun sila. Fundamental. Diyan si relevance and si faithful representation. So, relevance, anong meaning yan? Capability of making a difference in the decisions made by the users. Meaning, may impact siya. Oo, may significant impact siya sa decisions ng users. It is relevant. It is impactful. Under relevance is yung predictive value, which means that it can be used as an input in predicting or forecasting future outcomes. Paano? Yeah? As you can see, meron yung trend. Di ba? Like, for example, pag Christmas season, makikita mo na yung sales mo nag-increase. So with that, you have now the predictive value to say na, okay, next year's Christmas season, mag-increase ulit yung sales natin. Predictive value. Kasi nakita mo, based on the information, we can predict the future based on the information we have. Di ba? Confirmatory value provides feedback about previous evaluations. Materiality, kasi confirm mo, nakita mo, ganito kasing operation ng company. Nakita mo yung FS, okay, it confirms us na may problema tayo sa sales, may problema tayo sa sa handling of liabilities natin. Pag nakita na yung financial statements, nakita mo na, may confirmatory value siya. Yung ginawa niyong assumption, tama pala kasi na-confirm based on reviewing the FS. Materiality, its omission or misstatement could influence the decision that users make. Ito, natatandaan niyo, di ba? Materiality concept. Sa auditing yan, di ba? Ngayon, pagdating sa faithful representation, dito yung jowa mo, financial reports represent economic phenomena in words and in numbers that it purports to represent. Ito yung mga niya. Yung completeness, lahat ng kailangang information, nandyan, neutrality, wala kang bias, and free from error. It does not necessarily mean na perfect yan, but rather, no errors or omissions in the description, etc. etc. So, yan o. Parang nag-ano lang tayo, tawag dito, recap lang naman kasi itong review, especially FAR. Kasi nga, na-ingrained na to sa mga isip nyo. Kasi nga, ang FAR, chill lang yan. Ating in-depth discussion nyo, 1 hour 19 minutes. Sa overview, 58 minutes. Kasi nga, undergrad discussion to. Eto, review naman. Pagdating sa enhancing, etong sa baba, baka yung iba sa inyo, hindi manonood eh. Kayo bahala. Basta ito, binibigay ko lang sa inyo. Bakit? To help you. Para mas may options kayo kung ano yung gusto nyong aralin. Kasi nga, review na lang to. And, di ba? And ito sa mga suggestion ko. Ito suggestion lang naman Hindi ito ko kayo pinipilit. Sa suggestion lang naman, if mayroon kayong extra cash, as early as now, pasok na kayo sa mga review centers. Ngayong maganda yung nila kasi online na lahat, di ba? As early as now, pasok kayo sa review centers. Enroll na kayo sa mga review centers. Kahit hindi kayo magte-take this October, pasok kayo sa review centers. Kasi, promise, pag nagre-review kayo for the actual boards, as compared sa nag-aaral pa kayo sa college, pag nagre-review na kayo, wala kayong mapifeel na pressure. Wala kasi, masarap sa feeling na nagre-review ka, walang pressure. Pero of course, pag papalapit na yung board exam, doon na yung papasok sa'yo. Pero for the first few months, as compared sa college na may pressure, pagdating ng review, wala yung masyadong pressure. So, ipon-ipon na kayo para, start na mag-review. Suggestion lang naman, as early as now, kahit hindi kayo mag-take October, as early as now, take na kayo review. Kasi with the changing times on how kung ano man gustong plano nila sa accountancy, it is better to be prepared. Na sir, nakakainis yung 2 years na kailangan namin ng experience. Nakakainis talaga yun kasi hindi naman kailangan yun eh. Ewan ko kung anong trip nila. Feel ko nga, para lang yan sa mga ang may advantage pagdating din sa 2 years requirement na yan, yung makikinabang dyan is yung mga auditing firms, yung mga accounting firms. Kasi nga, sila yung kasi ngayon, since there's a lack of CPAs, nag-aagawan yan sila ngayon. Gusto nila maraming i-hire na CPAs ngayon. Kaso there's a lack of CPAs kasi late. Kasi walang mga bagong CPAs kasi wala pang board exam. So makikita natin dyan, hula lang naman to. Parang conspiracy theory lang naman is, sino makikinabang dyan sa 2 years na yan? Yung mga accounting firms, bakit? Magkakandara pa ng mga students or mga graduates na magtrabaho sa kanila. Kasi kailangan ng relevant accounting experience. Isang kapamako ng relevant accounting experience, di sa mga accounting firms. Di ba? Kasi yung mga accounting department ng mga businesses, puno na yan eh. Minsan na magkaroon ng vacancy dyan. Alin yung industry na alin yung industry na parating may vacancy? Di ba? Parating hinahabol na may relevant accounting experience. Hindi mga accounting firm, mga auditing firm. So, sila na yung magkinabang sa 2 years experience yan eh. Tapos, since in that case, sila na yung hahabulin, di ba? Sila yung hahabulin ng mga fresh grads. So, hindi na nila kailangan maghanap pa. Hindi na nila kailangan mag-invite pa ng mga additional students, di ba? Mga additional workforce. And with that, mas magiging masama or unfavorable yung trato sa mga workers. If may kikilala kayo, alam nyo kung gaano ka-stress yung buhay auditing accounting firm. Side note lang naman yan. Conspiracy theory natin yan. But anyways, ito yung sa Ito yung sa enhancing qualitative characteristics, yung comparability. meaning can be conferred with similar information about other entities like intercomparability and with similar intercomparability. Ano meaning yan? Sa comparability, you have this set of financial statements, then i-compare mo. You will see the similarities and differences. Pag din sa intercomparability, ano yan? Ibig sabihin, entities that are within the same industry. Kasi it is, anong proper term? Kasi it is unnecessary to compare the financial statements of entities from different industries. Ano yan? I-compare mo yung FS ni Jollibee sa FS ni SM? Yeah? Hindi. Kasi ibang industry yan sila dalawa. Sa intercomparability, compare similar informations about other entities within the industry. So, si FS ni Jollibee, compare mo kay McDonald's. So, yan, makikita mo talaga yung sense ng FS nila. And yung other type of comparability is yung intra-comparability or with similar information about the same entity from another period to or another date. Meaning, mayroong FS mo nung past 2 years, di ba? 2019, 2020. So, 2021. Makikita mo yung trend ng iyong ng contents ng iyong financial statements. Kung kita mo, tumataas yung liabilities natin. Tumataas yung sales natin. Uy, bakit lumilit yung ating retained earnings? Yun, di ba? Intercomparability. Verifiability, different knowledgeable and independent observers could reach consensus, although not necessarily complete agreement that a particular fiction is a faithful representation. So, it is verifiable, timeliness, kung kailan kailangan ng users, ng decision makers, available yung FS. And understandability, at the very least, maintindihan ng users yan. Not necessarily na pangbata talaga, but rather, yung may at the very least tawag ito, yung may sense or may alam kung ano yung binabasa niya. May idea ba? So yan, short discussion lang yan ng Conceptual Framework and Overview of Accounting. Ito, take note, cost is a pervasive constraint on the information that can be provided by general purpose financial reporting. Tawag dito, may tinatawag tayo, di ba, cost-benefit analysis. If the cost in acquiring the information is greater than the value of the information, then you will have to think twice if you will still get that information. Cost-benefit analysis. Kung kung yung value ng information na yun is greater than the cost, then goods, gawin mo. But, kapag mas mataas yung value yung amount ng cost in getting that information as compared to the value of that information, then think twice kung kailangan mo pang gawin yan. Fair value, ito. According to PFRS 13, if I remember correctly, itong fair value ang definition. Fair value is the price received to sell an asset or paid to transfer liability in an orderly transactions between market participants on a certain date, typically used on financial statements over time. Itong fair value, lalabas mo ito sa board exam? Usually itong fair value question, lumalabas yan sa mga competitions, di ba? Oh my God, nag-end siya. So ngayon, ito rin, overview ulit ng accounting, yung elements of financial statements. Yeah? Ito, alam niyo naman to. Elements directly related to financial position, statement of financial position, or nickname natin is balance sheet. Ito si asset. Anong characteristics ng assets? Requisites niya in order to be considered an asset. Controlled by the entity that came out as a result of past events that was acquired by the entity as a result of past events, yung nangyari sa past, and which yung asset na yan will provide future economic benefits that would flow to the entity. Yan yung asset. Sa liability naman, basically opposite ni asset. Present obligation that came out from transactions arising from past events. And kung saan yung settlement of which is expected to result in an outflow of economic risk or outflow from the entity of resources embodying economic benefit. So, asset liability. Sa equity, basically residual interest yan siya. Kung anong matira after deducting the asset, the liability from the asset, then that's equity. Sa income naman, ito, increase in economic benefits during the accounting period in the form of inflows or enhancement of assets or decreases of liabilities that result in increases in equity other than those relating contributions, revenue, ordinary, recap na lang to, ordinary activities of an entity, gain other items that meet the definition of income pero hindi siya makonsider as part of the ordinary expenses, decreases in economic activity, outflows division, expense. Recap na lang yan sa natin. Elements of FS. Pero don't forget the basics. Doon kayo titirahin ng board exam. Recognition of the elements of financial statements. Process of incorporating the balance sheet or income statement, an item that meets the definition of an element satisfies the following criteria for recognition. Meaning, kailan mo isasama? Kailan mo i-recognize yung elements? Ito lang. It is probable that any future economic benefit associated with the item will flow to or from the entity. So, parang inaswan niya, di ba? Inaswan niya. The item's cost or value can be measured with reliability. So ito, dito tayo ngayon sa cash and cash equivalent. So, itong cash and cash equivalent, generally, ito, madaling topic lang to. Madaling topic lang to. Ang nagpapahirap dito yung proof of cash. But the proof of cash, lumalabas lang yan sa auditing problems. So, ano ba yung cash? Financial asset that comprises cash on hand and demand deposits. So, yan yung mga cash. And cash, it is valued at its face value, which is equal to its fair value. Para siya, monetary asset yan siya. Kasi, consistent yung kanyang valuation. Foreign currency is valued at the current exchange rate. So, yung meron tayong separate PA accounting standard dyan eh. Tapos, you will meet that under accounting for business combination, yung accounting for foreign exchange rates. Tawag yun? Ano yung exact name nun? Nakalimutan ko. Yun. The effects of changes in foreign exchange rates, yan. Yan lalabas sa foreign currency sa pagdating sa advanced financial account reporting. Cash as a line item in the balance sheet includes the following. So, ito sila. Cash on hand. Anong yung sa possession mo ngayon? Excuse me po, gaya ng bills and coins. Demand deposits, savings and checking accounts, including foreign currency accounts. Kasi nga, bakit? Because upon your demand, you can easily withdraw that. Diba? Punta ka lang sa ATM. Ano mo? Pasok mo ATM card mo. Diba? Boom. Kita mo nga, savings account, checking account. Tapos maka-withdraw ka na agad. Kaya siya, considered as cash kasi kung kailan mo kailangan, makukuha mo. Cash equivalents, yes. Cash set aside for funds used in current operations. Yan. Checks on hand that may be in cash immediately. Yan. Consider yan sila as cash. And kapag i-compute mo yung cash ending, cash beginning plus receipts for a period minus disbursement for the period is equals to the cash ending. So basically, ganyan yun. Simple reporting. Ito naman when talking about cash equivalents, kasi nga, cash and cash equivalent to, short-term highly liquid investment. Readily convertible to unknown amount of cash and subject to insignificant risk of changes in the value. Kaya siya, because of these characteristics, si cash equivalent ako consider as part of cash. Anong purpose niya? Meaning, short-term cash commitments instead of investing it for other purposes. So, paano natin malalaman kung kailan pinapasok yung cash equivalent? Kasi, just because sinabi niyang cash equivalent does not necessarily mean kailan natin consider as yung investment cash equivalent? Kailan? Ito, maturity of 3 months or less from the date of acquisition. Take note, 3 months or less from the date of acquisition. Date of acquisition, kailan mo siya in-acquire. Diyan mo lang mako-consider as cash and cash equivalent. Diyan mo lang mako-consider na cash equivalent yan. So, dito. So, treasury bills, money market instruments, commercial paper, short-term government bonds, and time deposits as long as within 3 months. Within 3 months ng pag-acquire mo sa kanya, mature na siya. Ibig sabihin, ma-convert na siya to cash, means it is considered as cash equivalent. Now, can equity investment, gaya ng investment sa other companies o sa kanilang stocks, be considered as cash equivalent? Generally, no. Bakit ka? Tingin-tingin mo. Pangit. Can equity investments, gaya ng investment sa other entities, mga stocks, di ba? Be considered as cash equivalent? Generally excluded. Hindi. Kasi wala silang maturity date eh. Except for redeemable preference share that was acquired within 3 months from the date of maturity. Kasi nga itong redeemable preference share, kahit na preferential yan siya, ang nature niyan is, if you can still remember, liability yan siya. Liability yan siya. Hindi yan siya yan yung nature niya. Hence, kapag it is acquired within 3 months, and magre-redeem na siya, makonvert na siya to cash, okay, cash equivalent siya. Ito naman is cash set aside for specific fund considered as cash or cash equivalent. Yes, gaya na sabi natin dito, cash set aside for funds used in current operations that is considered as cash. Yes, if used for current operations meaning within 1 year or within the operating cycle from the date of the reporting period. Example, petty cash, payroll, interest, travel, dividend, and tax funds. Kapag hindi naman siya ginagamit sa current operations, then di siya makonsider as cash kasi nga ang cash is current asset. Yeah? Nilalagyan lang ng common sense. Gaya ng sinking funds, contingency, and expansion funds. Are checks considered as cash and cash equivalent? Yes. Yes po. Checks received by the company from a customer, cash receipts kasi nga na-receive. Checks written and issued by a company. Disbursement. Cash disbursement kasi nilabas mo, dinisburse mo. Ngayon, what are post-dated checks? Ito mga what are post-dated checks? Stale checks and undelivered. Post-dated are checks written by a drawer that is encashable in the future. Meaning, naka-receive ka ng check. Oo. Na-receive mo siya on December 31. However, pwede lang siyang ma-encash on January 15. So, yun ay post-dated check. Na-receive mo na ngayon check. Pero hindi mo pa siya pwede ma-encash kasi yung date na nakalagay sa check is January 15 pa. Post-dated check tawag yun. Stale checks, ito yung mga hindi na-encash for a long period of time. And usually, under the banking law, not encash within 6 months, considered as stale. Ano yun, tata? So, stale. Undelivered checks, dito yung mga checks na sinulatan mo na kaso hindi mo pa na-deliver o hindi mo pa nabigay, pero nandiyan pa sa'yo. Pero kompleto na yung documents mo, kompleto na yung check na yun, napirmahan mo na, pero hindi mo pa binigay, hindi mo pa dineliver. Ito, take note, these are excluded from computing cash balance. Kasi nga itong post-dated checks, hindi mo pa ma-encash sa future pa, kaya nga post-dated. Yeah. Itong stale checks, hindi mo siya ma-encash kasi nga, natagalan bago siya encash, so nawala na yung validity niya. Undelivered checks, delivered checks lang, nasinulatan mo pa lang Sinulatan mo pa lang, hindi mo pa dineliver, so walang actual delivery, walang actual transfer. What are outstanding checks, kapatid? Checks that are already recorded by the issuer as a disbursement. Ito, tandaan niyo to, di ba? Di ba sa bank reconciliation to, di ba? Checks that are already recorded by the issuer as disbursement in its books. Pero because of clearing period sa bangko, lalo na kapag check yan ng ibang bank, di ba? Ibang bank check yan. May clearing period yan. Pero pag same bank, yung check na ginamit mo, usually within the day, may transfer na agad yan, may transaction na. Pero kapag ibang banks yan, may clearing period yan. Kasi kailangan nila confirm yan confirm yan na may laman, hindi to non-sufficient, di ba? Speaking of non-sufficient, ito yun. Ito yung mga checks na not honored by the bank. Bakit? Kasi nga, insufficient yung funds in the drawer's account. Now, magta-transfer ka ng pera, wala palang pera yung account, di ba? Non-sufficient funds yun, NSF checks yun. What is a compensating balance and what is yung accounting treatment niya? The minimum balance that must be maintained in relation to specific bank deposit. So, meron yung compensating balance na yung 3K, if I remember correctly, sa BDO or BPI ba yun, may 3K ka na hindi kailangan yan, hindi mo pwedeng ma-withdraw kasi compensating balance yun. Maintaining balance, di ba? Kumbaga. Ngayon, yung compensating balance, kapag not legally restricted, part of cash. Pero kapag legally restricted, wag mong isama, kapatid. Ito namang bank overdraft, siya? Occurs when checks written against a specific bank account exceeds the available cash balance resulting to a credit or negative balance in the books of the depositor. Pwede pala mangyari, sir, na pwede kang mag-transfer ng pera kahit na mas mataas as compared sa kung ano yung laman ng bank account mo. Pwede yan. May mga certain those are certain agreements or perks yan ng mga certain accounts na kung saan you can transfer larger amount of money as compared sa kung ano yung laman ng bank account mo. Pero may mga ganyan may mga ganyang perks, yung mga overdrafts, bank overdrafts. Pero of course, that's with the agreement na within a certain period, the account holder will replenish the said bank account. Ganyan yan sa overdraft. So may mga inaalaw yan ng bank, mga certain perks yan. So pag ganun yung nangyari, nag-issue ka ng check that is more than the amount of the bank account mo, tawag dyan bank overdraft. Now, paano natin kinaklasify ang bank overdraft? It is classified as a current liability. Na sir, is there a right of offset pagdating dyan? Generally, should not be offset against the cash in bank balance. Pero take note, for every general rule, pag sinabing general rule, may exception yan. Anong exception? If the depositor has 2 or more accounts in the same bank and one of the accounts has negative balance, pwede kang mag-offset. For example, sa Metro Bank, meron kang checking account, meron kang savings account. Checking account mo, nag-negative. Savings account mo, merong pang laman. So, pwede mo yan silang i-offset. Pero dapat within the same bank. Bank reconciliation and proof of cash. Ngayon, ito yung problema pagdating sa tawag dito? Ang tawag dito sa topic ito, cash and cash equivalent. Generally, walang problema sa cash and cash equivalent kasi madaling topic lang yan eh. Ang nagpapahirap lang sa kanya yung proof of cash. Kasi ang bank reconciliation, just follow the formula and you're good to go, di ba? Pero pag sa proof of cash, yun yung makahilo. And usually, itong proof of cash, lalabas lang yan sa auditing problems. Sa auditing problems yan, hindi lalabas sa FAR. Sa auditing problems yan lalabas si proof of cash. Now, due to timing differences in recognition and errors, the cash balance per ledger and cash balance per bank statement may differ. So the differing balances are reconciled, kasi minsan iba yung laman, because of some instances, iba yung laman ng cash mo sa books, iba rin yung naka-record sa bank. So you need to reconcile that. Through the preparation of a bank reconciliation, which is usually done monthly, may 2 forms tayo, yung adjusted balance method, ito yung favorite natin kasi madali lang, proof of cash, yan yung mahirap. Kukunti lang. It is rare to find a CPA na magaling sa proof of cash kasi mahirap ang proof of cash. Ito, sasabi ko, di ba? Sa adjusted balance method, ito, just follow the formula and you're good. Diba? Cash balance per bank, yung unadjusted, so yung deposit in transit, add mo. Kasi nga, in transit pa lang yan, hindi pa na-receive na bank. Outstanding checks na issue na yan ni account holder. Pero si bank, hindi pa niya nabawasan, so bawas din yan. Bank errors, yan. Ngayon, pagdating sa errors, tandaan nyo, if the problem is silent, assume that the error was made by the entity, by the business entity, hindi ng bangko. Assume na si business entity nagkamali. Parang si bangko yung girlfriend, si business entity yung boyfriend. So, pag may nagkamali, if the problem is silent, si boyfriend parati ang may kasalanan. So, yan So, adjusted balance, cash balance per books, unadjusted. Credit memos, debit memos. Ngayon, yung credit memos, kung matatandaan nyo, it is a memo coming from the bank kung saan credit ni bank yung account mo. Credit ni bank yung account mo, meaning dinagdagan niya. So, dagdag din sa'yo. Pag naka-receive ka ng debit memo, assume na binawasan. Hindi naman assume. It means na binawasan ni bank yung amount, yung account. Dinicrease o binawasan ni bank yung account mo. Book errors yan. Ito yung adjusted. Madalang adjusted balance. Just follow the formula. Pagdating sa proof of cash, ito yung outstanding credit memos, errors. Pagdating sa proof of cash, usually for audit examination yan. So, pag mag-auditing firm kayo, yan. Simply a 4-column bank reconciliation, combination of 2 bank reconciliations for the current period and the previous period, and includes details of receipts and disbursements that happened between the 2 periods. Yan. Ito yung proof of cash. So, yan lang yung overview natin for overview accounting, conceptual framework, and cash and cash equivalent. So, next video. Okay, dito naman tayo sa receivables and payables. But take note, don't restrict yourselves with our lecture video. Use the time you have to study or to use other resources na pwede nyong gamitin to study further. Kasi nga, gaya na sabi ko, this is only a review. Recap lang to na mapinag-aaralan nyo. So, rundown lang to. ng mga topics. So, hindi to in-depth discussion kasi hindi to undergrad. Review subjects to. And take note rin na, well, considering 6 subjects to. Tapos, ito 6 subjects yung board exam natin, pero itong review subject is only 6 units. So, expect na hindi lahat madi-discuss kasi we have time constraint. Kasi, as compared sa amin sa ADSU dati, yung review subjects namin is tawag is integrative courses, INTEG. And baka yung iba sa hindi pa alam to. Yung FAR, 6 units yan, first sem of the 5th year. Yung remaining 5, 3 units yan sila sa second semester. As you can see, that is a total of 21 units for 6 subjects. Eto, 6 units for 6 subjects. So don't expect na lahat madi-discuss, okay? Kasi time constraint tayo. So, ito sinabi ko naman to last time pa pero sabihin ko lang ulit ngayon to remind you. So para use your time o yung mga your extra time to study other sources. Either manood kayo ng other lecture videos or baka yung iba sa inyo nag-enroll na sa mga online review centers as pinapanood yung lecture videos na. Don't restrict yourselves with our review subject. Study further. Kasi 6 units lang to. Hindi makakaya dito na ma-discuss lahat. Same lang. Ganyan din nangyari sa amin nung tinuro ko tong review subject na to last school year. Prioritize kong tapusin yung MAS kasi MAS yung killer subject. Is expected na maging killer subject. So yung ibang topics hindi na-discuss lahat. Maraming hindi na-discuss. Kasi nga time constraint. And ganun din yung mangyayari dito because this is only 6 units. So with that, payong kapatid lang. Payong future, punta rin kayo sa ibang sources. Oo. So with that, receivables and payables tayo. So dito, receivables and payables, bakit pinagsabay, sir, yung kanilang discussion? Because of their nature. Bakit? Basahin natin. Receivables and payables are monetary items that usually arise in transactions between entities. Yeah? Normal operations. They are not necessarily normal operations but rather monetary items. They are financial instruments since they represent contractual rights or obligations para to receive or pay cash or other financial assets under IFRS 9. So, primary concern natin when talking about receivables and payables is the valuation. So, the following will be discussed in this video, in this lecture. Trade receivables and payables, non-trade receivables and payables, refinancing ng receivables, and debt restructuring. Now, take note, bakit pinagsabay itong si receivables and payables? Ngayon, if you truly understand the topic, you can already immediately think the reason why receivables and payables are joined here sa review subject, sa topic na to. Kasi sa reviewer namin, ganyan din yung pinagsabay rin yung receivables and payables. Sino yung tata? Friend mo? Wala, may pinasok na mga bata kapatid ko dito sa... So, trade receivables and payables, current monetary items sila, as we have said, and it forms part of an entity's working capital. And includes accounts receivable, payable, and trade notes. Ngayon, ito, when do they arise? Ito na yung makita natin. Ito na yung maging reason bakit pinagsabay itong si receivables and payables. A sale transaction or service transaction is made on a deferred payment arrangement and recognition criteria, etc. etc. Bakit yan? Kasi tingnan mo, when there's a transaction, a sales transaction, a service transaction, and such is deferred payment, meaning credit yan, sa future pa yung bayaran ng cash. Di ba? Pag nagkakaroon ng ganyan transaction, ano yung itsura niyan? Ito si buyer, ito si seller. Si buyer, magbabayad ng cash, magbibigay sa yung magkakaroon ng exchange sa kanilang dalawa. And since it is deferred payment, meaning ang si buyer, magkakaroon ng accounts payable. Kailangan niyang bayaran si seller. Si naman, tawag dito, accounts payable pabarating. Ay, mali. Nabaliktad yung natin. Wala kasing space. Sorry. Saan yun? So, kita niyo yung nature niyan. Ito si buyer, ito si seller. Si buyer, siyempre, magbabayad yan. Pero this time, wala mo nang bayaran, deferred payment pa rin. Si seller, siyempre, ibibigay niya yung goods and services. Ngayon, in this case, anong itsura niyan? Si buyer, kay seller, meron siyang accounts payable. Kailangan niyang bayaran. O, di ba? May mga ganyang case. Ngayon, pagdating sa accounts receivable, meron naman ganyan, di ba? As you can see, these receivables and payables revolves around one transaction only. It revolves around one transaction. Down the cover ng page. One transaction. However, in looking into the transaction, there are different perspectives. Yeah, there are different perspectives. The perspective of the buyer or the debtor and the perspective of the seller or the creditor. In those cases, even though we're only talking about one transaction, but the perspective into looking to the transaction is different. Hence, there are, nagkakaroon ng receivables, nagkakaroon ng payables. Si receivables, kayo nakakatanggap, di ba? Future economic benefit that arises from a transaction. Future economic resources inflow sa entity. Sa payables, future economic, the economic resources will outflow from the entity. But looking at the fundamentals of that, iisa lang yung transaction. However, the perspective in the transaction is different. Hence, receivables and payables are discussed as one in this reviewer. Oo, kasi nga similar ring fundamentals nila eh. Nagkakaiba lang sa point of view. Di ba? Isang transaction lang, may payables, may receivables yan. Pero yung point of view, pero yung fundamentals sila, pareho lang. Hence, kaya as one yan sa reviewer. Pero ganun yung explanation eh. So, a sales transaction, service transaction is made kung saan hindi nagbayaran agad, nagkaroon ng deferment, so cash, walang bayarang cash yan. And the recognition criteria is satisfied as stated under IAS 1, yung probable economic benefit will flow to or from the entity, and yung second is yung it can be measured reliably, di ba? Ngayon, valuation ng trade receivables and payables. Sa trade receivables, yung initial valuation niya is face amount of the contract, invoice amount. Kung ano nakalagay, edi yun. Subsequent valuation, net realizable value or the estimated collectible amount. Diba? Baka sa future, nagbawas yung nagkaroon ng impairment, so bawasan mo yung receivable mo, di ba? Trade payables naman, on the other hand, liability to siya, di ba? Face amount of the contract. Okay, same. However, subsequent valuation, face amount of the contract pa rin. Oo, kasi for trade receivables, valuation requirement, NRV compels us to adjust the carrying amount. Bakit? Ganito kasi yan yung perspective ng ganito kasi yung perspective ng accounting standard natin. Pagdating sa asset, stricto yan, kapatid. Stricto yan ng valuation. Stricto yan ng valuation pagdating sa assets as compared sa valuation compared sa liabilities. If you can still remember your auditing, yung mga reasoning behind the auditing procedures, you can stated doon kung bakit mas stricto, or stated doon na stricto pagdating sa assets as compared sa liability. Stricto tayo pagdating sa overvaluation ng asset. Oo, di ba? Stricto tayo pagdating sa overvaluation ng assets. Kasi pag overvalued yung asset, di ba maganda yung itsura ng FS? Di ba maganda yung itsura ng FS? Maraming asset to sa entity as compared sa liability. Di ba? Yung debt ratio nito maganda. Ngayon, sa liabilities, ang problema dyan na inaano sa auditing is yung undervaluation. Meaning, tinatago, binababa yung amount ng liability. Kasi nga, ang perspective o ang perception ng tao, pag mataas yung liability, maraming utang tong company na to, mukhang delikado to. Diba? Yun yung perception. Hence, yung problema pagdating sa trade payables is, or sa liability in general, is undervaluation. Hence, kung makikita nyo dito, pagdating sa subsequent valuation, net realizable value. Kasi ayaw mag-overvalue ng amount sa receivables because that is an asset. Pagdating to sa trade payables, hindi NRV ang ginamit. Kasi face amount na of the contract kasi ayaw nating ma-undervalue yan. Di ba? So, for trade receivables, valuation requirement, NRV compels us to adjust the carrying amount. Kaya recognize uncollectible accounts or bad debts. Ito na yung mga bad debt expense, di ba? Dalawang methods meron. Direct write-off and allowance method. And ang ginagamit natin dito is allowance method. For trade payables, normally not discounted, kaya straightforward. Ito yung sa direct write-off method, di ba? Itanggal. Bawasan mo agad, diretso, bad debt expense, accounts receivable. Kasi actual bad debts na yan. However, pagdating sa allowance method, para lang siyang yung sa tawag dito, tawag doon, para lang siya yung sa accumulated depreciation. Hindi man, allowance kasi yun kasi binabawasan. Pero parang same sila ng nature. Instead na ibawas mo agad, outright, hindi mo na. Maglagay ka ng allowance. Yeah? Para sa allowance for doubtful accounts ito. Or yung sa accumulated depreciation. Nagtatabi ka ba? Nag-set aside ka in order to account the decrease. Kaya yung sa allowance method, allowance account, contra receivable, tanda nyo, contra receivable is set up and credited as an estimate cost that are potentially uncollectible. Estimated bad debts, ito actual, outright tinatanggal mo. Ito, parang sasabi, chill ka muna, huwag mo munang tanggalin. So, di ba, allowance for uncollectible, di ba, accounts receivable, then accounts receivable, pag nagkaroon ng recovery, ibig sabihin, gumanda yung credit standing ni customer. So, baka mababayaran ito ng buo yung kanyang accounts receivable. So, yun. Yeah? Recovery. Then, pag nagkaroon ng collection, okay. Goods. Ito, paano i-compute yung bad debts and yung ending balance ng allowance. So, pag percentage of sale, ito, computation. Percentage of receivable, ito ang computation, and ito naman pag-aging of receivables. Yeah? Nare-recap, nag-flashback yung mga tutunan nun dati. So, I know some of you nag-start na sa FAR without kahit na hindi pa tayo nag-post ng lecture videos, alam ko nag-start ng iba sa inyo. So, ito maganda tong recap review. Pero, tandaan nyo, pag may mga topics kayo na hindi maintindihan, don't hesitate na basahin yung in-depth discussion sa books. Kasi, may mga ganyang instances lang sa boards namin. Kami sa board exam, review, siyempre, may mga yung most of us, dala-dala yung mga libro namin. So, kung may mga topics kami na medyo hindi pa gets, okay, don't hesitate to open the book and read the in-depth discussion. Makakatulong naman pagdating sa board exam. Saan ko ba yung ginawa? Ginawa ko yan under sa special recognition, special revenue recognition. Yun sa FAR, binasa ko yung in-depth discussion sa book. Ano pa ba? Yung sa accounting for income taxation under PAS 20. Basta PAS 12 bata yan sa employee benefits rin. Yun, yung mga nung hindi mo gets talaga so kailangan mo ng in-depth discussion, hindi enough yung review. Don't hesitate to do that. So monetary. So yan yung sa trade receivables and payables. Let's go to the non-trade ones. Ito yung mga monetary items that arise from lending or borrowing. Transactions instead of transactions involving sale of goods or lending services. So basically, anong meaning ito? Lending or borrowing. Meaning these are monetary items that arises from financing transactions. Instead of it arising from operations. From the normal operations. Ito, financing transactions. So normally, long-term sila. Valuation, present value, discounted amount, and subsequent value amortized. Ito na yung favorite natin, di ba? Amortization table. The standard requires that long-term receivables or payables be valued at discounted amount and systematically amortized using the effective rate until they are settled. So, bakit natin sila dinidiscount? Bakit natin sila ina-amortize? Yeah? If you can still remember, financial management, the primary reason for this method is because of the concept of time value of money. Time value of money. Meaning, yung value ng pera mo ngayon, it does not necessarily mean na sa future, same pa rin yung value niyan. Oo. Same pa rin. No, that does not necessarily mean. Ibig sabihin, magbabago yan. And usually, since normal lang tayo, normal yung nangyari, you need to account for inflation. Kung saan yung general average prices increases and with that, inversely related sa decrease ng value of money. So in this case, you need to account for the time value of money. The fact that the value of cash or the value of money decreases in the future. So kaya nagdi-discount tayo para ipakita natin yung toong value ng money na yan. Yun yung reason. Kasi nga, yung non-trade, yung mga long term yan sila. Kasi pag short term, yung time value of money, yung concept of time value of money, dinidisregard yan. Insignificant kasi yung effect niya pagdating sa mga trade receivables because those are short term. Pero when we're talking about long term, dyan na nagkakaroon ng significant effect yung time value of money. Hence, you need to discount. Ito, nominal rate. Ito yung simply the rate used to compute the actual money. Ito yung typical na nakikita nyo. Yeah? Yung kikita nyo, 12% interest yan. Nominal rate yan. Should pay to the lender to use that money. Receivable or payable is interest bearing. The nominal rate is the stated rate agreed upon by the lender and the borrower in the borrowing agreement. Kapag non-interest bearing naman yan, wala kang nominal rate. Kaya, di ba? Because remember sa book ni Zeus, di ba? Maraming examples doon na paano ang computation ng nominal rate. Pag interest bearing yung note or non-interest bearing, di ba? Mas enjoy tayo pag interest bearing, mas madali, di ba? Sa non-interest bearing, walang nominal rate because simply because no interest payment was agreed by the party, yan yung sa nominal rate. Ito yung typical. Ngayon, mayroon din tayo tatawag na effective rate. Effective rate is basically the rate which takes the power of compounding into account. So, usually, ginagamit natin is yung market yield rate for interest bearing and imputed naman kapag non-interest bearing. When the problem is silent and only one rate is given, it is assumed that such rate is both effective and the nominal. Pag silent, tas 12% ang nakalagay, effective and nominal siya. Ito na yung present value. To. Familiar naman tayo dito, di ba? And take note, when computing, kasi usually, ang kinocompute natin parati sa calculators natin is yung present value. So, take note, sana-sanay na kayo magamit ng calculator na hindi scientific. Kasi, matagal naman nag-start. 2019 pata nag-start, no? Na hindi na pwede ang scientific calculator. So, sana, by now, sanay na kayong gumamit ng non-scientific. Kaming mga nakapasa na, siyempre, hindi na kami magpapalit. Stick na kami to. Ano yun? Stick na kami to using a scientific calculator kasi nga tapos na kami. So, yun make sure na sanay kayo sa tawag ito, yung term pa nga nila ginagamit is yung calculator de tienda, di ba? So, paano tayo napunta dyan? Sa calculators. Kasi nga, present value. So, present value is defined as discounted amount of the future cash flows expected from the monetary item using the effective rate. So, IFRS 9 or PFRS 9 pagdating sa atin requires us to value financial instruments like notes and loans initially at fair value plus transaction cost. This simply means that when we compute present value, we are actually computing for the fair value or the issuance price of the receivable payable as a financial instrument at the time the transaction is made. Di ba? Yan yung nature ni present value eh. Ito yung amount niya sa future pero yung totoong value niya as of now. Di ba? Because of time value of money. No. Yan yung reason. At least alam nyo yung reason or aware na kayo or na-recap nyo or naalala nyo ulit yung reason bakit tayo nagpe-present value. Yeah? Na-ingrain yan sa inyo mostly pagdating sa financial management subject, no? FinMan 1. FinMan 1 pa lang, yung nagko-compute tayo doon. And sa business math, di ba? Diyan din yung computation. Or math of investment pa yun. Same lang. So the way ito medyo pass na lang to kasi computation na to eh. So, basahin nyo na lang. So, the way present value is computed, kasi baka familiar naman kayo kung paano yung computation niya, but take note, mga notes lang, additional notes lang to para sa IFRS 9, amortization table, diba? Favorite natin yan. Ito, additional notes on amortization. Ito, impairment of non-trade receivables. So, according to IAS 36, which is the impairment standard, at the end of each accounting period, an entity is required to assess whether there is any indication that an asset is impaired. An asset is impaired when the carrying amount is greater than the recoverable amount. So, yan yung sign na mayroon ng impairment. Ngayon, pag nagkaroon ng impairment, it will result on impairment loss. The amount by which the carrying amount of an asset or cash generating unit exceeds its recoverable amount. Ito. So, ano yung carrying amount? Ano yung official definition niya? The amount at which an asset is recognized in the balance sheet after deducting accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment losses. Yan yung carrying amount. Recoverable amount, on the other hand, is the higher of an asset's fair value, less cost of disposal, sometimes called the net selling price, and the value in use. Ito, di ba? Itong recoverable amount, usually nakikita nyo to siya sa PPE, di ba? Sa PPE, ito usually nakita si recoverable amount. So, yan, Pag mas mataas si recoverable amount compared kay carrying amount, impairment tayo. So with that, impairment of non-trade receivables. For non-trade receivables as notes and loans, impairment at which for non-trade receivables as notes and loans, impairment basically happens when its current amortized cost, yung carrying amount niya, is greater than the expected future cash flows discounted at the original effective rate or the value in use. So basically, ito usually yung mga ganitong problems, ipapakompute talaga kayo niyan. O ipapakompute yan sa inyo kung ano yung carrying amount niya as with the amortization, etc. etc. So ito, let's say nag-recognize ka na ng impairment. There are chances na yung value niyan tataas ulit. So with that, magkakaroon ng reversal of impairment. So reversals of impairment may be made if there is an indication that the previously recognized impairment loss may have decreased. The recoverable amount is then recalculated. The carrying amount of the asset is then adjusted upwards and again on reversal of impairment, loss is recognized. Now take note, may restriction tayo pagdating sa recovery. Mayroon tayong restriction dyan. Ito yung itsura ng restriction. Ito yung value niya before impairment. Tapos ito, nagkaroon na ng impairment. Ito na lang yung value niya. Ngayon, pag mag-i-increase yan, make sure na hindi siya lalampas sa original value niya or original amount niya before impairment. Hindi siya ang recovery, hindi pwedeng lumampas dito sa original amount niya. Okay, notes lang yan ha. Hindi pwedeng lumampas. Uy, napindot ang end. So, yan lang. Trades and so, parang tag dito. So, sir, mabilis man yan. Mabilis talaga because this is a review and the nature of receivable and payables, same lang. Ganyan. Yan yung nasabi ko nung nireview yan sa amin. Bakit maikli? Kasi same lang naman ang nature ng receivables and payables. Nagkakaiba lang sa point of view. So with that, let's go to receivable financing. Now, receivable financing is a means of raising funds by utilizing existing receivables. This may be done through the following. Bakit? Kasi may mga instances na kailangan mo ng cash. Like baka may mga sudden payments or sudden expenses na kailangan mong paggastusan. Di ba? Na kailangan mong paggastusan. However, wala kang cash. So, papaano mo? One of the ways para magkaroon ka ng cash is to finance your receivables. That is one of the way para mag-raise to funds. To raise funds. I-finance mo yung receivable mo. Paano? Ito. Pledging. Bakit to? Pledging, assignment, factoring, and discounting. Sila yung 4. Now, itong si pledging, or also known as hypothecating, normally happens when borrowing arrangement is with banks require security in case of non-payment. So, basically, ang nangyari dyan, ginagawa mong security, ginagawa mong collateral, yung accounts receivable mo kapag mangungutang ka. Yun lang. Ganun lang si pledging. Ginawa mong collateral. Ginawa mong security. Yung entire balance. And, hindi natin to walang reclassification dito. Notes disclosure lang. Disclosure lang sa notes. Dito naman sa assignment of accounts receivable, nagkakaroon na dito ng reclassification. However, yung reclassification na yan is within the accounts receivable itself. Yeah? Transfer of rights to a particular asset without actually selling it. Ina-assign mo lang. Walang transfer of ownership. Walang transfer of rights. Tawag dito, assignment lang. So, ito, yung original accounts receivable, okay, credit to move to konti yung mga X. And, debit yung yung accounts receivable assigned. And of course, may notes to disclosure to. Don't forget that. And yung proceeds on the notes issuance is the percentage of assigned accounts minus the service fee. Kasi may mga yan Nasabihin, 80% of the accounts receivable, yun yung marireceive mo, minus yung service fee, yun yung proceeds on net issuance. Collections, net of discounts of the assigned accounts normally applied first as payment to the interest and also total account receivable minus the note payable balance, equity on the assigned account. Ito naman yung factoring. Ito sa factoring, there's an absolute sale na. Di ba dito, sa pledging, ginawa mo lang, kinolateral mo lang. Dito sa assignment, nagkaroon lang ng assignment, walang actual selling. Pagdating sa factoring yun, absolute sale na to. Transfer of ownership niya. Binenta mo na sa bangko yung receivable. And with that, ito yung computation. Carrying amount of the accounts. Ito yung net proceeds. Carrying amount, service fee, interest charge, factor sold back, usually of discount. Itong factor sold back, ang nature niyan, parang ano lang, parang paniguro. Parang paniguro lang yan, ni bangko. Kaya holdback yan. Kaya nakalagay dito, receivable pa rin yan. Receivable from factor. Parang, hindi ko muna ibibigay buo. Tsaka na sa future. Kapag kompleto na yung sale or kapag isa sa mga provisions ng agreement nila is buong accounts receivable na bayaran na. Na-settle na. Tsaka lang ibibigay ni factor or ni bangko yung remaining part ng tawag ito? Na benta. Factor sold back. Kaya sabi ni bangko, para maniguro lang ako, hindi ko muna ibibigay buo sa'yo. Yung buong sale. Buong proceeds yun. Kanina ko pa na buong proceeds. I-hold ko muna to based on the percentage na pinag-usapan natin. Tsaka ko na to ita-transfer sa'yo ng buong proceeds na to kapag nabayaran na yung buong accounts receivable. Parang paniguro ba ni bangko? Ito naman sa discounting. Discounting is basically a transfer or endorsement by note by the pay in favor of another party, which is usually the bank. Endorsement lang to. Ito with recourse and without recourse. Basically, yung note discounting is somewhat selling the note receivable to the bank pero at an amount less than the future cash flows that may be realized from it. So yan yung para siyang selling pero diniscount, yeah? Para siyang selling pero na-discount. Kaya gain or loss on discounting is usually recognized for the difference of the net proceeds received and the current value of the discounted note. Bakit yan? Kasi nga, yung note receivable na yan, hindi pa nagmamature. Hindi pa nagmamature. So, dito sa receivable financing, hinahanap mo yung value ng discounted note and with that, magiging iano mo yan sa net proceeds para malaman mo kung nagkaroon ng loss. Ito yung carrying amount, date of discounting. And the net proceeds, depende sa computation, para malaman mo yung gain or loss. In case where the debtor cannot pay of his obligation due to financial difficulties, the parties may enter into, continuation ng receivable financing. Ito yung debt restructuring, di ba? If may narinig kayong bankruptcy, file for bankruptcy, di ba? Pag nag-follow kayo always siya na-mention yung debt restructuring. Kasi either pag nag-file ng bankruptcy yan, magsisis ng operations or magpa-file ng bankruptcy yan to restructure the company. Tapos makikita nyo dun word na debt restructuring. Ano yung debt restructuring? In cases where the debtor cannot pay his or her obligations due to financial difficulties, the parties may enter into a debt restructuring agreement. Kasi itong debt restructuring, basically, yung original provisions or stipulations ng debt contract nila, babaguhin nila. Babaguhin sa mag-uusapin sila, mag-negotiate sila kung ano yung magandang bagong provisions. Bakit? Para in order to enable or in order to aid the debtor to pay his obligation. Para bigyan ba ng chance si debtor na makapagbayad ng kanyang utang. Debt restricting is fundamentally the liquidation or settlement of debt in exchange for non-monetary asset, gaya ng asset swap, share issuance, equity swap, or modification of terms. Any gain or loss arising from restructuring is included as separate line in the statement of comprehensive income. So ito yung asset swap, equity swap, and ito yung sa modifications of terms. So yan lang. Yan lang sa trades and receivables. Review, recap, 30 minutes, sak.